Yeah, so I was going to talk about our implementation of Umbraco, and we kind of use it in a not so common way, and we did some heavy customizations there. I believe I have about 25 minutes, so I'll keep it brief, and I can't really focus or bring anything to depth, and I'll start right away. So what we do is we have a social intranet / digital workplace, and it's a single multi-tenant solution. And we have multiple front ends. So we have a single page app, we have a native app, and we also have an app in Microsoft Teams. I added a little screenshot here. And what we actually serve is like classical intranet stuff, like news, knowledge base, and stuff like that. But also, we focus a lot on the digital workplace. So we have integrations with Citrix, with remote desktop, some local apps, a lot of integrations with Office 365, like Exchange and Teams, and pretty much any line of business system out there. And what we want to do is show a user everything that he's allowed to see and is relevant to him right now. So this is a big challenge, and think of it as bringing all of the data you have within your organization, your digital workplace, and make it relevant. So we started around 6 years ago with this kind of intranet, and for now we have it was a single tenant app, and it grew a lot. So now we have like 350,000 users and around 3,000 back office users. So that's a lot for Umbraco. We run in multiple countries. We have multiple languages in there. And we started off with this architecture. And so we have a front end, which is a single page app. We had a data service like an API, and it served content from the Umbraco CMS. So we're not rendering pages or anything. We use Umbraco purely as configuration and content in the form of JSON documents. And what we actually did was we showed a user everything that is relevant right now. So just some pages, and that was 6 years ago. And we use Umbraco to create user content, JSON content, and configuration. And we served this content using API controllers. And we consumed that using the data service. And then, because we had a lot of traffic, we cached a lot of this data and served it to large groups of users. And that all went very well. But then we thought of this. We want to show not only stuff which is relevant right now to a user, but also what he's allowed to see in his language for his tenant only, because we became multi-tenant, and it should be relevant and it should be right now. Yeah, you can imagine that when you have like large common data streams, caching works well, but now like each and every request was specific to that user, so we couldn't cache, and we had like a large stack in there. So the portal became really slow. And then what we actually did was this, and I think this is not a common use of Umbraco, but it works really well for us. So we use the CMS purely for content creation and editing. And so in Umbraco we have a read-write model where we create the content, and every time a back office user hits save and publish, we render a read model which we store in Azure. We index it in Azure, and using microservices, we service that model to the front end. And you can imagine that rendering this read model, it's dependent on a lot of nodes. I won't go into depth there, but it takes some time. For easy stuff like news documents and so, it's pretty fast, but we also have a lot of configuration out there, and it just takes some time. So we said, okay, the time penalty for creating this content is for the content editor and not for the consumer. And that raised a lot of new issues. Because the consuming, it's a time-consuming process, rendering this stuff, and we still have this multi-language issues, and we have this multi-tenant issues. Due to the time, I won't go into depth too much on the multi-language and multi-tenant issues, but I want to focus a bit on the time thing here. We made a clear distinction in performance and perceived performance. And performance is like the real time your page loads, and the perceived performance is how fast the user thinks the page loads. And this is all when creating content. When you hit save and publish, we added some extra time in there. Well, what we actually did there was, when you hit save and publish, we start a background process to render the read models. And we kind of added some hooks and stuff in there, which I will show you how we did it. And maybe, I'm not sure if it's clear, but when you hit save and publish, in our portal it says, okay, content published and will be visible shortly. A background process kicks in, and when it's published, you'll get a notification saying, okay, content synced successfully, changes are applied to your portal. Now, how did we do that? These are some minor steps. The first step is, okay, we need to hook some events, and we created some observers, and we register all of these observers on application started in our Umbraco startup. And when we init, we just kind of hook all of these events like publishing, published, trashed, and so on. Then the second step is when it's published, we actually start a background process, and we ask every observer, if you need to do anything with this, just let us know, add your job to the queue, which is the jobs dictionary. And when we're ready, we'll just execute all of these jobs of these observers. When we're ready, we notify the notification app saying, okay, this content is saved, it's changed. When it fails, it doesn't have to happen too much, but then we say, okay, saving caused an error. Then we actually use Signal R as a notification hub to notify the front end that stuff has changed. So we hooked Signal R in there, and then we just say, okay, notify stuff has changed. And the last step is in the front end, where we actually say, okay, notify the front end that is changed. And one of the really, really cool things I think about Umbraco is the back office is completely open for extension, and they have a lot of cool front-end services out there. And we use these services and kind of hooks to make this happen. So this is an example from the notification service, where we tap into this service and just say, after hitting save and publish, Signal R says, okay, it's finished. We'll just add a little message saying, okay, now it's synced. Yeah, I think I'm going pretty fast. I thought I had like 25 minutes, but I think, what time is it? I'm going really fast. I want a last tip for you guys, and that's about the back office users. We do have a lot of them, and they have a lot of opinions and questions and suggestions. And we tend to find that these back office users are your best friends or your worst enemies, all depending on how you build the back office, like the document types and stuff for those guys. So the thing we do a lot is, if we ask a backend user to enter some data, like a date or a field or some text or whatever, is this absolutely necessary, or can we derive it from other content, for example. And if we can derive it, we won't ask for this data. And also we check labels and descriptions, but that's pretty clear. So they know, okay, if I change this, this will actually happen. And we'll also check, is required or not required, and cardinality and that stuff. Is that all okay to create a really cool back office? And in our opinion, when you do that and you focus on that, your back office users will become your best friends and your best ambassadors as well for your system. I was so fast. That's it. So I'm not sure if you have any questions. Happy to answer any of them.
I'm back. Hello.
Hi.
You're a little fast, but that doesn't matter. We can probably fill it up. We actually had a question in the very beginning of today about the performance overhead of single R in a large-scale situation. Maybe you are just the guy to answer that question. So you said we hooked up single R for the publishing, but single R also has a keep alive connection. So is there a limit? How many connections until things start toppling over? Can you tell us something about that? What you experienced there?
In our experience, the overhead, we only use Signal R in the back office. So
okay.
Not in front end. That's one thing, and then you have the long polling for Signal R and the WebSocket solution. And what I saw, but this is more like we're completely running on Azure for this. Azure has a Signal R service where you actually offload all of your Signal R traffic to a separate service. And this offloading works, but comes at a cost.
Obviously. So how many back office users are we talking about in your application? Because you were building intranets. I understood. I didn't quite follow the first bit.
Yeah, we have built a SaaS solution, and it's like a single page intranet with multiple front ends. So we also have native app, for example, as a front end, and that's why we actually use Umbraco to generate only JSON. So the users create JSON and we consume that in our single page app, in our native app, in our Teams app. And we have around 3,000 back office users, so that's a lot.
Yeah. So and on how many because you're using app services then in Azure, or is it in VM? What are you running that back office on? Because if there are 3,000 users, how are you?
We kind of and remember this was 6 years ago that we started. We tried to use horizontal scaling with Umbraco, which didn't work out too well on Azure. And now we create like silos. So we have like a CMS1, CMS2, CMS3, CMS4, and so on. We have silos which actually publish the content to Azure. And there we have a microservice architecture which actually scales out really well, and where we can actually cope with the high level of consumption there.
Okay. I have one question from the chat that's coming in. What type of Azure storage are you using for the pre-generated read models? Are those blobs? Is it something else?
Yeah, we started out using, I forgot how it's called. Now we're using blobs, just plain documents using blob storage. It works really well, but we index them using Azure Search. And so based on Azure Search, we can actually retrieve all the content really fast. And when we actually need all of the content, we can pull in these blobs.
Okay. I'm actually still having quite a bit of a hard time imagining what those read models look like. Can you maybe describe them, or can you show them? Is it like, do I have to imagine it as a big JSON document, or what are those read models?
Maybe I can show you something. Oh yeah, lekker. Just one moment. I'm looking up some stuff.
You didn't lock that door good enough.
No. Is my screen?
You already answered someone else's question by talking about the indexing, so you had foresight there.
Okay. So if you see my screen, this is like a Azure Storage
Can we put
Explorer.
the screen up?
And for example, we have news, we have more news, and in the end, document looks like this. And you can actually see that there's not too much content in there. This is on the golf course. How do I feel?
So I reckon this model generates pretty fast, but there are also models with a lot of content, and those can take so long that you need that background worker to do the stuff.
Yeah. If you look at the portal is built based on a configuration file, if you will. So we have a lot of widgets in there and a lot of configuration, and based on your settings as a customer, it adds some widgets, adds some widgets to the store and stuff like that. So that's one big config file. And because we say, okay, we want to derive as much content as possible, that one takes some time to render, actually. Yeah. And thank you. And that's where this mechanism really kicks in, because it can take up to 4 or 5 seconds to render it, and we never had any complaints about this rendering time. But you can imagine 4 or 5 seconds in a synchronous process. That's a long time. So.
Yeah, exactly. So the content editor can just continue working on whatever he's doing, and he will just get notifications when things are ready and up and running. And does that mean that because you mentioned that because of this new solution that caching is really hard, so the pre-rendered models is a solution to that caching then?
Yeah.
Is the end performance still the same? Because when you cache things, you probably store it in maybe what is it, Redis cache or memory cache or?
Yeah, we stored it in Redis, but you can imagine at first, Redis is really fast and robust, so that went really well. And actually, blob storage, with Azure Search, is also extremely fast. So performance-wise, I think maybe we're even faster.
Okay.
Yeah, in front-end side. So, yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm really out of questions now. I think I've got everything answered. Do you have anything else you want to let us know? Because you went through it really fast. Maybe you thought, I've still forgot to tell you something.
No, not so much. We're in the process right now of migrating to Umbraco 9.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
Which is interesting because we saw a lot of interfaces are actually broken from 7 to 9. So that's a big challenge for us, and we're kind of waiting on a definite answer. What will happen with the front end of the back office? Will it remain Angular or what will it be? Not sure if it has been discussed already today, but.
Yeah, that does actually trigger another question for me. Is there a lot of custom stuff in your back office? Because it was Umbraco 8. We could see that from the screenshots as well. And as you mentioned, the upgrade to V9 is a few interfaces that change, but is it mostly logic from a backend perspective, or is there also custom editors and?
We created so much controls. That's unbelievable because. For example, our identity model is based on Azure AD, so we use Azure AD groups a lot, and so we did some heavy integration with that stuff, and also Azure AD group pickers and stuff like that, and SharePoint Online site pickers and Power BI integration, and we had to create all of these controls ourselves. And I can honestly say it's been a lot of fun actually creating these items because the good documentation which is out there, and the ease of building this stuff. So, but yeah, it's all AngularJS. So if it's going to React or something, then it will also have some work.
Yeah, most likely. Well, thank you very much for your interesting talk. I've learned a lot. I'm always interested in how other companies handle their performance and scaling, and so it's really fun to hear about how you use all those different Azure services to do what you have to do. So thank you very much. Well, hopefully we'll see you another time in an actual live setting where we can shake hands. And but until then, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day.
Okay. Same to you guys. Okay.
Hey, bye-bye.